Hi, very good evening to all of you, and thank you for coming for the third annual lecture that has been organized by Ashank Desai Center for Leadership and Organizational Development. We, of course, start off by thanking Ashank Desai, who's our mentor and sponsor for the center. I'm not sure if he has joined online, but he might in a few minutes. I'm really happy to introduce to you Mr. Vineet Agrawal, who is a distinguished business leader whose remarkable 4-decade journey with Wipro offers invaluable lessons in leadership, organizational transformation, and long-term value creation. For many people, when they get promoted, a lot of their team members say really good things about them. Or when they have a new job, then people say good things about them because there's possibly a reason that this person will, there's a favor to curry. But what is interesting about him is when he retired is when a lot of people had a lot of good things to say about him. Not because they wanted to just curry a favor from him, but because they genuinely appreciated the way he led. And that is the kind of leadership we want to speak about in the center. And that is how we have identified and we've requested Mr. Vineet Agrawal to join us today. So Mr. Vineet Agrawal joined Wipro in 1985, and this was his first job. Vineet, is this your first job? And the only job, yeah? So for those of you who think that, you can't be in a job for as long, we have an example, including some of us who are in the same boat. Mr. Vineet Agrawal, and he went on to lead Wipro Consumer Care and Lighting as its CEO from 2002. During his tenure, he transformed the business from a predominantly India-focused enterprise into a global FMCG organization with operations across more than 60 countries. Under his leadership, the business expanded nearly 20-fold in revenue, completed 15 strategic acquisitions, built a portfolio of iconic brands, including Santur, Yardley, Chandrika, Enchanter, Romano, Bioessence, and grew into an organization with over 10,000 employees worldwide. That's a large organization to set up, and so we're very happy to learn from you today. Of course, beyond the impressive milestones, Mr. Agrawal is widely respected for his people-centric leadership, his ability to build high-performing global teams, and his unwavering focus on culture, ethics, and sustainable growth. As he recently concluded an extraordinary 40 years career with Wipro, his journey stands as a testament to the power of leading with purpose, patience, and conviction. And so we're very happy to have you here. Mr. Vineet is an engineer from IIT Delhi and an MBA from Jamnalal Bajaj Institute of Management Studies, Mumbai. He's also a recipient of Distinguished Alumni Award from IIT Delhi. Today, we have the privilege of hearing him reflect on the lessons, experiences, and leadership insights gathered from 4 decades of building businesses, leading people, navigating change, and shaping organizations. I had no clue what these noises are, but let's just ignore them. So with that, I think it would be just opportune for us to both invite you on the stage and all of us welcome him for being here. Just as a welcome.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
I'll just read. So what we're going to do is we'll have him speak for about 40-45 minutes. And then if you have questions, there are many of us who have sheets. You can write your question. You can send it to us. We will read it and we will ask the question to Mr. Vineet, and then hopefully we will have the time to answer. Thank you.
So good evening to all of you. I'm not very, I'm a little embarrassed when somebody says I worked in an organization for 40 years, because the youngsters don't appreciate it and they think I'm mad. So I like to sort of avoid it, but I think Professor Vora did talk about it. Thank you very much for calling me here to talk about my experiences. Normally I'm not called for leadership lessons. I'm normally called for marketing. We have a brand called Santur, and for M&A, the various M&As that we have done and integration of M&As. So I was pleasantly surprised when Professor Vora reached out for leadership lessons. But so from my perspective, I would say that leadership lessons or leadership is like an ongoing journey. But more important, I don't think there is one way that is the right way for leadership. So I've seen leaders who are very, very different, very, very distinct, but very successful. And I'm sure that goes for, and therefore the experiences are different. So whatever I'll present is my experience, need not be what you think is right or wrong, and therefore you're absolutely right if you are going to challenge me or question me for what I'm going to say. So first I'll talk about, not working. No, it's not working. Yeah, okay. So first I'm going to talk about my experience. And the first experience that I have is that IIT and IIM graduates, I have said they don't make natural leaders. What I wanted to say, do not make good leaders. But I was a little embarrassed to say that, so I would rather just say natural leader. And the reason is very simple. I'm not saying all of them, but most of them, is because of the fact that most of these students are bright students or were bright students in their school, and they were toppers in the school. The teachers used to love them. All children want to become their friends, so they didn't have to make any effort to shine. Okay, and typically the people who are middle to bottom of the class have to make an effort to shine, to make themselves heard, and therefore it is a little bit more difficult, and they have to use ways and methods to how to get more and more attention from people, from teachers, from other students. And that's where the leadership and to how to get people around you becomes important. While the brighter children, they get everything. And then now we are nuclear families, and in nuclear families, it's the parents are always ready to give you anything that you want, and you don't have to fight too much. While in the old joint family system, what used to happen is that there were 20 cousins, and then you sort of jostling and trying to align with a few people and trying to make yourself heard, etc. So some of the leadership lessons we have missed out, especially the brighter students. And therefore, I think it's important that we learn them. And that's an important one, that we are conscious of this fact, and the fact that we learn them is important. In acquisitions, a little bit more difficult in terms of leading teams. And I'll give you an example. What happened was in 2007, we did an acquisition in Southeast Asia. It was a multicultural acquisition, which was in Malaysia, Indonesia, Vietnam, South China, Hong Kong, Singapore, etc. And it was a company which was larger than us. We were relatively smaller. They were a little larger than us in categories which we didn't understand. At that time, in 2007, there was no deo category in India, or body washes were not there, or fragrances were not there in India. And these were companies which were making that, and we were making simple soaps and lighting. So to that extent, their category was unknown to us. It was a little bit of hostile acquisition because the owners wanted to sell it to someone else, and we sort of pipped them to it. And so then after the acquisition, I had gone to Malaysia, which was the largest country for us in that part of the world. And I was making a presentation to them about the company, etc., what we do and what will happen, etc. And at the end of the so if you look at Malaysia, Malaysia is about 70% Malays, which are Malays Muslims, okay, and about 20% Chinese, Chinese origin people, obviously Malaysians, but Chinese origin, and about 10% are Indian origin people, right? So that's the constitution of the place, but typically all senior leaders are all Chinese. So it's really, all leadership is really Chinese, except in political leadership, which is obviously much more Malays, but but business leadership is all Chinese. So after the presentation, a couple of people come up to me and say that, we have this festival, I'm sure you have it in India also, where you whip yourself, you put needles in your cheek, and you cut yourself, you bleed, whatever, etc. So I said, yeah, we have Muharram. It's there, we know about it. So he said, no, this is a Hindu festival. And we have that. We said, we don't have any Hindu festival which is like that. And I was, we were two of us from North, two of us from Calcutta, one from Tamil Nadu, two from Maharashtra. So we were sort of diverse, and we were looking at each other and said, we don't have such a festival. and then when we came back and said, what? And then the person from Tamil Nadu came back and said, actually there used to be a festival called Thaipusam, which was near Madurai. And all these people who had migrated for plantation way back, 200 years back, moved from that place to Malaysia, and they became plantation workers there. And they've carried the Thaipusam there. It's still a holiday, it's a national holiday for them, because 10% is Hindus. It's a national holiday for them. Well, it's dead in India. It's not even there in Madurai. But what it gave us is that, their impression of Indians was that it is this old world, etc., who have not moved with times, not educated, doing all this, old archaic stuff, etc. And that's the time we realize is that, none of the people, and we've done about 8 acquisitions outside of India, all in Southeast Asia and in China, and one in South Africa. And all of that, not one person has ever come to India. Never come to India. We travel to Vietnam and Malaysia as holidays, etc. But none of them, and we would have had close to about 6,000 people over the last, from 2007 to let's say 2025 or 2026 when I retired. None of the people have ever come to India, right? So their impression, unlike Singapore, which is they think of us as professional, financially great, etc. Malaysia did not, and even Indonesia was positive because Birlas have a lot of factories, etc. But Malaysia did not. And what we realized is that we have to first sell them India, and then we probably have to sell them Wipro, and then we have to sell them the Wipro consumer products, right? So your challenge is very, very different from what you started out to be. It's not like India. Okay, so acquisition, especially cross-border, tests leadership even more, and leadership, as I said, is lifelong learning. And this is something that I discovered in 2007 after working for almost about 22 years. What about my mistakes? This was way back in 2003. I just taken over as the CEO, and there was a person, we wanted a product manager, a brand manager in Bangalore, and there were 2 sales guys. The sales guy that we wanted was in Pune, and we thought he was good and he was bright. And all sales guys want to come into brand management, right? All them you guys would say that, right? They want to come into brand management. Okay, so we said he's good and he should come, etc. But the regional manager said, no, there's a lot of instability in Pune, I can't release him, etc. Why don't you take this guy from Bombay? We were not sure about the Bombay guy. We said, no, he's not the guy to take. But, so we listened to him and saying that, okay, we don't want instability, and moved the Bombay guy. And what happened? 2 months later, the Pune guy resigned, and he got a job somewhere else, though not in product management, but he left. But he says, I don't want to be here if you guys are not going to take me. We lost the best guy that we had. Not only that, the rest of the organization again felt that, the best of the guy was not given the job. So again, that was the issue. And third, the guy who came from Bombay anyway couldn't perform. So that itself was a mess. So, one learning, you have to take the best guy for the job. You can't have any logics. People who don't want to release good guys always in teams because, they are worried about their own performance, but as an organization, we need to ensure that. Not taking decisions fast enough. Decisions were for something like integrity. It's like a drop of a hat for us, ask the person to leave immediately. There's no second question at all. But in a lot of times, for performance reasons, the guy is not performing, we would tend, have we given him enough time? Another 2 quarters, 3 quarters, 4 quarters. And every time then we've asked a person to leave. And I've always felt that, if you ask a person to leave, maybe you're doing justice to him because he'll probably go somewhere else and does much better. And there are a lot of people who've gone outside and done much better. But that's a place they were much more comfortable with. And that's a job they wanted to do. And so it's always been, I always felt that, maybe could have done 2 quarters back or 3 quarters back, etc. Having an acquirer mindset. So in 2006, we acquired this company called Switches in Delhi called Northwest Switches. Very strong in Delhi and Punjab in that area, very, very strong. We wanted to get into light switches. We already had lighting there, so we wanted to get into light switches and we acquired it. It was a small company, but 30 crore company. We were much larger. Wipro itself would have been probably about 10,000 crores at that time, or maybe 20,000 crores at that time. So, I was talking to this junior guy and asked him, you'll be proud that, you'll carry a Wipro card from tomorrow and, it'll open up doors for you. You can go and sell to multiple places, etc. And he looked at me, he said, sir, मुझे नहीं लगता मेरा कुछ help होगा, मुझे problem होने वाला है. So, I said, what problem? I said, name of Pradeep. I said, Pradeep, क्या problem होगा? So he says that, today I go in front of DLF, I go and sit with them. DLF is my good big buyer. I take them a new series, show it to them. And he said, okay, for the next project, why don't you use it? He said, okay, what's the price? And he'll ask me, I'll take this, but I'll not take it at X. I'll take it at X minus 10%. I'll call up my owner and ask him, sir, ये deal होने वाला है 10% में, क्या करें? So he'll probably say, drop the price by a little bit and your deal is, you either take it or leave it. He said, now what will happen is that I'll call up the area manager. The area manager say, my maximum allowed, I can only allow 2%. He'll call up the regional manager. He said, okay, I can maximum allow 4%. He'll call the national head. He said, this is the maximum I can allow. And, by the time I take the decision, the deal is gone. And I suddenly discovered that he's not happy. I thought, he'll be very happy. He's got carrying a Wipro card. He's not happy. His job is going to become difficult. And the feeling that you have that, I know what to do. I will tell you how to do it is all wrong. Okay. You are not going to add value to him. So the feeling that, we are a large organization, you carry a Wipro card, you're a 30 crore organization, you don't know how to do work, and I know that to do work better is all, doesn't help at all. No retention will happen, nothing will happen there. We'll talk about it a little bit more later. And then this, another thing which happened with me, I was moved from consumer business to our printers business. We used to make dot matrix printers, line matrix printers, and also sell lasers in '99. And I didn't know anything about the IT business. Okay, I was just sort of transported there. I headed that business I was given that business for '99. Small business, about 200 crores at that point of time. To get me that experience. And when I went there, I didn't know anyone there. Okay, I just knew the leader whom I was taking over from, and he was moving to a different role. So I had no informal connect in the organization that you want to have in an organization. And about 2.5 months later, my head of factory and also the head of procurement, a senior guy, a general manager, senior guy, he came to me and said, Vineet, you may not know because you're new to the organization and new to the IT setup, the Infotech, Wipro Infotech. There's a lot of rumor that I'm resigning. Okay, and before you come to know from someone else, I thought I should come and tell you so that you're not surprised and you're not taken aback that, you're resigning. So I said, good, thanks, GN, his name was GN, thanks GN, you told me, otherwise, somebody else had told me, I'd have been shocked. And then he went away. And 3 weeks later, he resigns. So I told him that, GN, you came to me 3 weeks back and said, there's a rumor going on. You didn't tell me you're resigning. He says, I told you there was a rumor, but I didn't say that I was not resigning. Okay? So, and that's what I call, the art of deception. I mean, it's been done by Yudhishthir to Dronacharya of Ashwathama, and I think that is the biggest stab in the back that you can get. You may have, because you've broken a trust. I mean, what Yudhishthir did was just broken a trust. He can be the best man and never said a lie, but he broke a big trust, and then of a trust of a teacher. But I'm saying this art of deception is something that the only thing it made me learn is that verify, verify, and verify. Right? You can trust a person, but you need to verify. And it does happen. A sales guy will come back and say, the price of competition has dropped, and then you check that maybe in one outlet for some reason they have given a special discount. The price in the market has not dropped. Okay, or somebody will come back and say that there was a shortage, and that's why I couldn't meet my targets. And then you discover that there was a shortage in an SKU which only constituted 2% of your sales. He's right, there was a shortage, but that was only constituted 2% of sales, doesn't justify the 10% off that he was off from his target. So I'm saying verify and verify and verify. And marketing people will come back and say, consumer research is coming and telling me this. But then if you go back and say, how was the consumer research designed, and you will find a different answer. So it's important that you verify and verify. The questions I ask myself, okay, what value do I add? Okay, as a CEO, you sit down, it's very easy to do a review. Okay, you committed this last week or last quarter, you haven't done this number. And what are you guys doing? You, HR guy, you were supposed to recruit so many people, you have not recruited. Your attrition has dropped, why has it dropped? Very easy to question, right? Why haven't you done this, why haven't you done that? But the question that you have is, at the end of the meeting, what is it that you have, how have you added value to him? Okay, how have you made his job easier? What has he taken away from you? And that's something which actually a lot of Gen Z want. I mean, they are not listening to your firing, etc., etc. He says, what did I take out from him? How does it make my job easier? And that is a question which hampers me at the end of every meeting, saying that what did I value add to the team here to make him do his job better? And the second is that when you become a CEO, you are leading legal, which I have no reference of. You're doing long-term agreements with the union. You have no idea. I mean, you're doing VRSs, you're doing soap technology, have no idea of all that, right? And then you wonder, am I the right person to lead? Because I have no idea what is really happening. I know sales and marketing, which itself is changing, but but in this area I have no idea at all. And therefore it's important that you need to upgrade yourself. And that's something which is important on every step. That how do you upgrade yourself in any which way? And now I'll come to saying that what I would suggest people do. First is get a great team. And what do I mean by great team? Is hire for a diverse team. What do I mean by diverse? I'm not saying diverse in terms of gender diversity. That's only one small part. I'm saying diversity in terms of experience, in terms of education, in terms of the background, in terms of religion, or the place the person comes from, the industry he's worked in. The more diverse you have, the better it is, because people learn from each other. Peer-to-peer learning is actually much, much more than from boss or from juniors. Peer-to-peer learning would really, really help if you have a diverse team. I remember in Santur, Santur has that iconic ad where, the girl is mistaken as unmarried, etc. And typically somebody would say, ki, iski shaadi kara dete hain, and this young child will come and says, mommy, and that's a surprise element of the fact that she's looking younger than it is. So we had made an ad, which was this girl who's selling, or lady who's selling bangles, and the Santur mother goes there and she's trying out bangles. He says, if you wear these bangles, so in next winter you'll get married, okay? And And this child comes running in and says, "Mummy," I mean, that was the ad. Okay, the ad was doing very well. But in Kerala was not doing well, and we couldn't understand what's going on. And then we discovered in some part of Kerala, bangles were associated with prostitution. I mean, that's something we didn't know. Okay, and that's where the cultural context and the fact that the diversity came in. The sales guy in Kerala was shouting, saying that, "What the hell are you guys doing?" Okay, that this is not what is required, and so diversity helps. I mean, we were lucky that we could pull it off reasonably fast, but or pulled it out reasonably fast. But that's what really happens. Get a team better than you. What do I mean better than you? What skill set do they bring in that you don't have? In area of, let's say, sales and marketing, which I understand. I mean, somebody in legal or industrial relations or factory would anyway know better than me. But let's say even in sales and marketing, I mean, I used to have a person who was extremely experimentative. So it's something that he understood. You could take bold ideas and decisions, and that's something I couldn't have taken. Okay, he really brought value to that. I can probably come and say, "Ye nahi karo." Okay, I was more the stopper and saying, "Let's be have a little bit more sanity." But he had that. He was a brave guy there. There was another guy who was in sales and marketing who moved to M&A, and he had the patience, and he had the ability to understand what the other person thinks, and then come back to us saying that we are wrong in this acquisition, and we need to correct ourselves and correct our understanding and explain to us in the organization. And he had the patience that he chased a deal in China for us for 6 years. Okay, anybody else would have just left it. And we then did one more deal in Philippines after chasing it for 7 years. It was amazing, right? So that's what he brought into the table. And third guy was there who was just really, really good in market research. And he really could understand how to do market research extremely well. While you had the agencies, but he understood it very well. So can you get a team which is better than you? It'll only help you. Okay, build on strengths. What do I mean by build on strengths? I mean, typically you have a person saying that, everybody will have strengths and weaknesses. You typically attack his weakness saying that, ye mat karo, you'll become better, right? And the story is that's not what you're supposed to do. You really, really build on his strengths. Weaknesses everybody will have. And to change weaknesses is not easy. I mean, we have weaknesses, we don't exercise in the morning. Try to get this person to exercise in the morning every day. You know what the battle is, right? So that's a weakness. But to build on strengths is very, very easy. And I'll give you an example. We were talking to this Paddy Utton, who's the person who was with John Wright in the Indian cricket team, the coaching staff. And he came with us, he was telling us a story that Sehwag, who was the explosive batsman, he used to hook the ball. He was a compulsive hooker. If the ball came up, he would hook, come what may. And for opposition, it was very simple, that you add one fine leg, one square leg, and, lay the leg side trap, and at one point in time, he'll get caught, right? So they didn't tell him how to improve his hooking, but saying how to avoid it. And it took them weeks and weeks to teach him, you duck and just avoid it. He never ducked, he never avoided it. And once he learned this, he made those 300 in Multan, he made all those 200 plus scores, because the weakness is something that he avoided, and his strengths was built on. That you do your cover drives, you do your straight drives, that's what you're good at. Forget, avoid your weakness, don't try to paper up your weakness. Build on the strengths of individuals. And this is something that I always see. People compete with their own reportees. You will get the credit. If he does well, you will get the credit. Finally, all credit will come to you because you are the boss. So don't try to compete. I've seen presentation being made, and the reportee will make one line and the boss will intervene and say 10 lines as if the reportee has not talked about it at all. Unless he or she is going off track. And if you really want to add something, add one line and finish it off. Don't take the credit. Don't compete with the reportee. He or she will never love you. And never feel threatened. Why are you competing? It's because you're feeling threatened. So don't feel threatened. You will only gain by the fact that your reportee is good, and if you have a team which is much, much better, much greater than you. Now, these are two words that I really live by, that, I'm not the warm, backslapping manager, who will put my arm around the shoulder, the warm guy. I'm not that guy, right? I'm not that extrovert. But I think what worked for me was being firm, and you just can't be firm, but you have to be fair. So if you have put one benchmark for one set of individuals, don't change it. And being firm is important because nobody likes a vacillating boss. He said one thing today and something else tomorrow. Being firm and fair, you may be wrong. And unless you have very, very strong reasons that you want to correct it, be firm on your decisions. In most of the decisions, you don't know whether it's what you're right or wrong. But, you need to be consistent and be firm about it. And, we used to see, I used to see close to about 200 360 appraisals. 360 appraisals, for people who do not know, are appraisals. I mean, the boss gives you a rating and your and ranking, and writes about you. Your peers do the same. Your reportees does the same, and you do it yourself, and that's a score which gets reflected. It's more like the Juari's window sort of thing, right? Where you get to know what others are saying. And what we have seen, all reportees would value people who were much more firm and much more fair than just being warm. So you can be warm and you should be warm, but the firm and fairness has to come in. So don't be goody-goody for the sake of it. Typically, a subordinate will tell his boss will tell his subordinate, I have recommended you for promotion, right? But the HR and my boss, have declined it. Okay, so now I'm the good guy, but they have declined it. Frankly, I would recommend to a subordinate, please leave the boss as fast as possible, because he doesn't have any credibility. He can't do anything for you, and you better well leave the boss. May not be the organization, because he can't do anything for you. So goody-goody doesn't help. Goody-goody bosses are not the bosses that people would like to work for. But at some point of time, you're doing an injustice to them. Giving negative feedback is also very difficult, right? You just tell a person you're not doing a good job, you need to correct it, is very difficult. And the way to do it is not to say that you've done a bad job, is to say, how can you do the job better? So if you tell a person saying that you could have done a job better if you had recruited faster, you've done a job better if you had appointed those 5 dealers better, you could have done a job better that you would have pitched with this customer in a different manner. Try to do it at the time very close to what the event has happened rather than at the end of the year, because then the person anyway cannot correct. But giving a feedback has to be very developmental. Very, very, in terms of saying, how can you do it, rather than saying, you are an idiot, you don't know how to do it, correct yourself, but how does he do it? Make expectations clear. I mean, that's the other thing that we've seen, is that a lot of subordinates would come back and say, I didn't know I was supposed to do this. Okay, the expectations was not clear to him. And then support the person in time of crisis. And I see this, this both professionally and personally. Professionally, if you support the person, he's willing to take much more risks. The organization becomes much more risk-taking. Okay, you made a mistake, things will go wrong. Support him. I mean, don't throw him under the bus. And that's what happened. Personally, I think it has, everyone goes through a crisis. And I remember, I was, we used to stay in Meerut, and we were coming to Delhi. I was joining for my engineering classes. My father was going to office. He was in the army, and I've seen that so much so in the army very well. He was a general in the army, so I mean, we were driving the car. I was driving the car. It had a flag on. It had the stars, etc., etc. And then there were those army trucks, convoys coming from the other side, which are these huge Shaktiman trucks, which are really, really strong steel. I don't know what happened. I was driving, but I don't know what happened. I probably touched it on one side. The car swirled, and the impact came on the passenger side, which my father was sitting. That time, and this is 82, and nobody used to wear seat belts, and the cars were not designed so well. Okay, and I must have hit my head, so I was groggy for some time. And my mother was behind, and she fell down, and so when I probably regained my senses after some time, and I staggered outside. I saw my mother sitting at the back with shoulder cord, so I said, okay, at least she's alive, and there's something wrong with the shoulder, but we can fix it. Then I see my father, who's lying on the ground, and he, a JCO, a junior commissioned officer in the army, he had his head on his lap, and by the time they had all, it was the fact that they realized that it was a general who was traveling. They had the, this was not, that unit, he didn't have anything to do with it. I mean, it was an army unit, but he had nothing to do with it. And they had got the stretcher by that time. They had removed one in a 3-tonner. They had removed everything, made space. They were putting him on the stretcher and taking him to army hospital. So my father was speaking, saying that, where's my son? I want to speak to him, etc., etc. And I realized that, he was slowly losing consciousness. And these guys said, you don't worry. We'll take him to the army hospital. Okay, we were in Modi Nagar, which is like 45 minutes away from Meerut, and we'll take him to a Meerut hospital, which is a reasonable good hospital. So I said, you go ahead, and the commanding officer, by the time he was coming in jeep, he came, he said, I'll take care of you, let your father go, I'll take care of you, we will do the police FIR, etc., etc. But what I found was, this was an amazing thing that only army can do it. And I think it's because of this that people have the courage to go and lay their lives for the commanding officer. To me, that is leadership. I mean, I don't think I've ever reached that level that I can tell someone that you go and face the bullets, right? And this is where it comes from. And I think it's because of the fact that the camaraderie is so much more, and if something happens, there's somebody to back you, is phenomenal. Sorry, I think I just skipped. Yeah, okay. Support at time of crisis. Lessons in acquisitions, okay. Number one, nobody likes to be acquired. Okay. Nobody wants tomorrow his boss changes, suddenly his role gets diminished. He has to get transferred. He doesn't know whether he's going to work or tomorrow he's going to get sacked. Okay, none of that nobody wants. That's not something anybody wants. Nobody likes to be acquired. Okay. And therefore you have to value the employees. Even when we are in brand building things, we have to value them, ensure they retain with us. Okay. We used to have a 4-day course where they just came from outside of India, just looked at to understand what Wipro was, to understand what Wipro Consumer was, to understand what India was. Okay, take them around to see what India's depth of culture was. Take them for shopping. Okay, just to make them feel welcome was important. Not to have the acquirer mindset. I mean, you have acquired him because you had extra money, not because you deserve to acquire him. Just because you had the money, you acquired the other person, not because you had money. So respect that. Understand the cultural context. Okay. And I'd gone to Vietnam immediately after that acquisition I was talking about in 2007, and there's a country head called Luan who was the head, and they were based in Ho Chi Minh City. I flew into Hanoi, which is like North Vietnam, and I said I'll do the market for 4-5 days to understand the market. So she obviously flew in a day earlier, and from Monday to Thursday we were doing the market, and Thursday evening we came back to Thursday morning we came back to Ho Chi Minh City, and we were doing Ho Chi Minh City market. And then she suddenly said, Vineet, I need to give a report to my boss. She used to report to somebody who used to report to me. Okay, so I have to give my report to my boss, so I want to leave at about 2 o'clock so I can finish my report. I'll join you for dinner. So I said, no, Luan, language is a battle. Your sales head doesn't know English well. So why don't you continue with him? I'll tell your boss that she'll give the report on Monday because I'm with you today. So tell her to you don't worry about it. And I texted him saying that she's with me. She'll give this report on Monday. She continued with me, and in the evening I said, no, don't join me for dinner. Culturally, they were supposed to join me for dinner and all that. I said, no, don't join me. You've been out for 4 days, and your children, her children were 7 and 5. I said, they haven't missed you and all that. Why don't you just go home? And so next day morning she meets me. I said, yo, your children would have seen good. You met them after 4 days or whatever, 5 days. So she said, no, by the time I left, when I reached home, they had slept. I said, but why, do they sleep early? Because we left at about 5:30 or 6 o'clock we left. So she said, no, I went back to office and finished my work, which I was supposed to give to my boss. Okay, and that's the time I realized this commitment to commitment levels were very, very different from India. Okay, and that's what we learned, that there, for example, in Thailand, you can't even raise your voice even to the maid. So the manager comes back and says, my wife raised his voice with the maid and the maid refused to come after that. Okay, just raising the voice, because that's not culturally right. Here, if you have a meeting at 1 o'clock, we'll continue it. Okay, we'll finish it. 1:30 bhi ho gaya, 2 ho gaya, it's okay, right? We'll finish the meeting, boss is sitting, so we'll finish the meeting. There you break for lunch at 12:30 and that's what it is. Or you break for dinner at 6:30 and that's what it is. Even, when I plan, I have come to Ahmedabad, I want to work to Ahmedabad, suddenly I will say, no, I don't want to work Ahmedabad, I want to work Baroda. That's just fine, right? I have the luxury to change my plans. While there you can't do that. Okay, you have to plan. So culturally understand the context, and that's an important part. And demonstrate your ability to value add. Okay, just asking for reports doesn't help. Okay, so for example, simple things. Our factory guys got into low-cost automations. How to get automations done very, very low cost in the factories. Our finance guy ensured that they were buying, let's say, window licenses at a much lower cost because Wipro prices were much lower. He value added. Our marketing guy said, okay, we know our fragrances well, we'll get your fragrances cost much lower, we'll speak to the fragrance houses, got the prices down, you get the benefit. They were getting the incentives because their margins went up. They were value adding to them. The HR person, unfortunately, was just asking for reports. And she was never accepted by them. Because where is the value add? And that's an important one. And therefore, what I have to say in any acquisition, you learn before you lead. You learn the context. You understand what works for the employees before you can start leading them. You can't lead them because you are the boss. And this is my last slide, which says that, I wish I had said this. I thought I had said it, but I suddenly discovered that Ronald Reagan, it is attributed to Ronald Reagan, that it's an art of making ordinary people do extraordinary things. Something what we see always in the army, that ordinary people are willing to lay down the army. This thing much, much better than what else somebody else can do. And that concludes my presentation. I'm happy to take any questions that people have.
Okay, here's a question from PGPX student, and she's saying, I imagine experience teaches us things that numbers don't. Could you shed light on any incident where you had a business instinct that data alone wouldn't have helped gather? Can we build such instincts?
Well, fantastic question. Very fair question that, this thing happened. But, if you look at the examples that I gave, I couldn't have ever understood what a diverse team can do for you. How people would think so much differently in various places. What really happens in acquisition and what really happens to cultural context and how it makes an impact. When we did a Yardley acquisition, Yardley was very, very small in India. It was like 15 crores. And I think last year they ended more like 400 crores. So very, very small business in India. And I was making a presentation to them in Bombay. And they had an office in Goregaon. And at the end of the presentation, I said, any questions? And this young receptionist get up saying, will our office change? For her, that was the most important thing than anything else in the acquisition. Because in Bombay, everybody comes by train. And our office was in Vashi, and they thought we'll shift to Vashi. So it was important to tell them that, and I was saying that nothing will change for you, but for her, it was important to say that, will my office change? For that, that's so much more important.
Okay.
than salary or emoluments or whatever else.
Thank you. Here's another question. What basic framework did you personally use to decide whether the rupee should go towards acquisition, brand building, manufacturing, or innovation? And has that framework changed over decades?
So I think I was a little lucky there. We started with a very small acquisition. The first acquisition was Glucovita, which we acquired from Unilever, we paid some 5 crores for it, so it was very, very small. The second one we did was Chandrika. Again, we paid some 35, 36 crores for it, so it was relatively very small. And fortunately, they did well for us. And most of our acquisitions did well and beat the plan, so the board was very generous to give us money for it. So I didn't really face this whole battle saying that should I put the money here or put the money there. But yes, so there was never a battle between acquisition and brand building or expanding a factory, etc., etc. I think the battle did happen saying that where do I put in money, whether I put in advertising, especially when we were small, or whether I should put money into a lot of other overheads. Until we were small, I was clear that anything that brings in revenue will get the fastest thing. So I was saying I'm willing to stay in poorer hotels, not take taxis, etc., 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 but ensure that we can take out all my money and put into brand building to ensure that it grows. So anything with brought in revenue, because you get respect if you grow the organization, if your growth gets more respect than size. Okay, so I mean, if you look at the biggest company, FMCG company in India is Unilever, and they are 68,000 crores. They're not small. Okay, and I was just seeing the result. They grew at 10%, and everybody was slamming them. At 10% growth, they were adding another 6,800 crores annually, but they were getting slammed because everybody else was growing at 70 to 20%. So growth gets much more respect than size, and I think that's important. That your revenue should grow, and therefore all my money went to anything which generated revenue or could generate revenue, rather than anything going to the other nicer parts in the organization.
That's very interesting. Thank you. I think here's another question. What do you believe has been Wipro consumers' most durable competitive advantage over the last 20 years that competitors still underestimate? So more business question.
I think in India, I think the whole impact in rural and small towns is what we created. Okay, I mean, so which naturally meant we were weaker in the larger towns. So AP was the biggest market for Santur. If I landed in Hyderabad for market visits, I land in the morning. I'll take a straight taxi, go to Mehboob or go to Warangal, etc., etc. I might spend a couple of hours in Hyderabad, but that's not what I would do. I would go to a Warangal, Mehboob Hanamkonda, whatever else, right? Suryapet, but not in Hyderabad. So that was our strength. Okay. While typically senior managers, most of the organization would land up and do metros. I mean, I've done less of Ahmedabad and done more of Rajkots and Nadiad and Baroda than Ahmedabad proper. So we were weaker here, but that's something that gave us a moat, and which did that. Second, I think is whenever we did acquisitions, we probably did better because of the fact that we didn't lose people. We just ensured that people stayed on and on and on with us. And I'm trying to say in all the 15 acquisitions we did in multiple countries, we lost only 4 people in the first 2 years of acquisition, and that was largely because we put in a lot of effort to keep us with them, keep them with us, so that to ensure that a lot of things that you don't understand about the brand retain within the organization, and we try to learn before we lead. So I mean, even if you see latest acquisitions that people have made, they've just removed managers, and then they've struggled because you really lost the essence of the organization, and that's something that I strongly believe that is a tremendous value. People are tremendous value in any acquisition, even if you're doing a brand acquisition.
Very nice. Here's a very interesting question. So she says, I'm a 25-year-old woman, and someone who wants to carve a path and create an impact like you. Someone who grew from management trainee in Wipro to a CEO. What would you tell your 25-year-old self, especially given the dynamic AI-driven environment today?
So that's a simple answer because, that's what I tell my children, okay? So, one is 35, one is 32. Still older than you, but yes, I just tell them, simple is that just love what you're doing. If you love what you'll do, you will excel in it. If you don't love what you're doing, don't do it. But anything that you do, be sure that 50% or even 70% would be mundane. Okay? The exciting part is only the 20 and 30 and 40%, right? Nothing more than that. If you reach 30 or 40%, you are blessed. Okay? But if you love the 20 or 30 or 40%, I think you are there. End of it, I don't love reviewing people, why didn't you do this, why didn't you do that, why didn't you do this, why didn't you do that. But that's what I do most of the time, or what I did most of the time. Because you're reviewing and reviewing and reviewing and setting targets with that guy is arguing with me, saying that no, it's not going to happen, etc., etc. Acquisitions happen once in a while, making strategy plans happen once in a while, once a year, whatever, etc. But it's mundane stuff that you're doing on an everyday basis, or trying to upgrade yourself, saying that what have I taught to this team that they can do their job better, which is hard thing because you have to come up with thoughts and ideas every time. But if you love your job, you will do well. I'm not saying that you should remain in the same organization. Not necessary. Find a place which you love and then continue there. You will do well.
That's very interesting because, it's about obviously if you love it, then you put in your effort.
I don't value loyalty any which ways. There's nothing called loyalty in my mind. I may be there, but not because of loyalty, but because I loved what I did.
Correct. Thank you. If there are any other questions, because I've read out all the questions, if there are any other and somebody wants to ask them, you're welcome to. Yes.
So Vineet, I didn't know about your background. Came from a army family. So, but what it looks like your leadership style is somehow inherited. Is that right? Because I have also seen the other leadership styles where people have come from a family where bureaucrats are there, and there they value more of leadership by diplomacy or not putting any stress among the teams. So what is your viewpoint on this?
I don't know how much I got impacted by the army background, but yes, what is really I felt great about army was the camaraderie that was there. Including the fact that when my father passed away, and this was almost about 20 years, because 20 years later after he retired, so typically you have to inform the army because they set you pension and all that, right? So when you inform them at the time of the cremation, there was this local unit again which had nothing to do with them, because we were in Meerut, and the unit came in, they had the wreaths, they placed, and then they had the flag, which is sort of, then folded and presented to me, etc., etc., etc. The whole thing about feeling valued was so good and proper that, which I didn't know earlier, that, this happens. And I think that's something that in times of crisis, there's somebody to stand with you, is something that I valued. And I think I've always valued the fact that I should always ask my father, why should somebody follow you to the front? And I remember in 1971, war, I was 10 years old. And I discovered that, one of my father's colleagues, younger colleagues, had gone to on the front, and he was fighting in this area called Cham. And if people remember, in 71, there were only two places that was very bitter fighting, and probably we lost a little bit of land, was in Cham and Poonch. This is in the Punjab, J&K area. So I said, so war had ended, and that's the time I discovered, because, the de-escalation tab takes about 2-3 months, so the person was still at the war, and that time I came to know, until that time nobody knew where he was, right? He was called to the front and some story was given to his family, etc., etc., right? So once the war was, ceasefire was declared, he was told that he's safe and he's in Cham and all that, he'll come after 2-3 months, So, and I said, I asked my father, what happened, we lost, uncle was there and you lost in Cham, what was he doing and all that, right? So, he said, when he comes, you ask him, okay? So, when he came, I saw his hair was totally white, right? And he was like 35. He was jet black hair when he went. I mean, I couldn't have the courage to ask him. Then I asked my father, what happened? What happened to him? So he says, you have to realize that, people are dying left, right, and center. And forget the fact that you are worried about your own life. But, when you see so much of death around and you're trying to tell them to go and attack and go and defend or, take this bunker or not take this bunker is of a different caliber altogether. So you have much more tension than just thinking of your own life and your own family. And that is much more. And that's why I always thought in saying that, these guys must be doing something really, really good, brilliant in terms of leadership, that somebody can do it for you. Yeah.
See, my question is different, not pertaining to what Arvind had asked. See, you said you had gone for acquisition, and you had gone for acquisition for a larger company in profile, in platform. And if you look at the data which we read from the industry, hardly 8 to 10% acquisitions are successful. Take the example of Apollo Tires. Mr. Kaur had spent a lot of money in acquiring number of, I've just forgotten the name of the tire company, and it was not successful. In spite of the efforts, in spite of the management, no doubt company has grown like anything. So what is the reason for that?
No, so if you ask me, on hindsight, would have I acquired that or would recommend that you acquire a company which is bigger than you in categories which you don't understand?
Apollo also did the same.
Yeah, I would not recommend it. I think it's a foolish decision, just turned out right. Okay, I would not recommend you do it again. But yes, at that time, I think that arrogance was there. We can do it. We're doing so well in India. And when we acquired, we suddenly realized this is going to be difficult. But I think the talk that is about, you should have the humility to learn. And I think that's very important. The fact that in this case, we were smaller than them, right? But, and in categories which we didn't understand. So the humility to learn is extremely important. Okay, this was a bigger size. Even the 30 crore company that we acquired in switches, okay, understand what his problem was. And how do I value add to him to do better? And the question that I had to our team is that how do you ensure that he gets his decisions much faster? And what we did was that he was not reporting to the area manager, but reporting to 3 levels higher, because his decisions had to be taken much, much faster than the normal decisions, right? So you need to make those structural changes. I would have lost all my Yardley people in Goregaon, even though it's a smaller company, if I told them to shift to Vashi, because all of them used to come by train. So we kept that office, it costed me more, kept that office for 2 years. And then at the end of 2 years, I shifted my Vashi office to this place, because I had committed to them that nothing will happen to them. No changes will happen to them. So we took a bigger place in Goregaon, in the next building, and shifted my Vashi guys to here and told them, 2 years back I told them that you guys are going to shift, so you please plan, this is going to happen. If somebody is getting posted, he should take a school in near Goregaon rather than Vashi. But it's important that you respect what you acquired. And most of the times, way back when we started acquiring, the playbook used to be Cisco. They acquired so many companies. The first thing is, first 30 days, what will you do? First 90 days, what will you change? First 180 days, what will you change? You'll change the email. So we didn't even change the email IDs. He said, why do you have to change the email IDs? If he's proud of his email ID, let it be. And when we talked about Unza, which was the company required in 2007, with all that, it was always us and they. Only when we acquired in 2013, which was 6 years later, one more company in Malaysia, Singapore, and that's only time they moved to us, and that company became they. So it took us 6 years for them to start feeling Wipro. So it's
leaders like you.
Sorry.
They need leaders like you.
So I'm saying the point is, so there have been acquisitions which have not done well also. Fortunately, none of them have collapsed, but not done as well as it should be doing. We were just fortunate from that perspective. Second, I think we need to understand what the culture of the new organization. That culture of the new organization is very, very important to understand. And if it's very, very different from yours, just avoid it. And the third is that what is the strength of leadership there? That is important because if the strength of leadership in the other organization, so we walked away from a lot of acquisition when we felt the strength there is not, it's not the strength that I have, but strength that they have because I value that strength. So a lot of founders, when they move away, the other company, the people below them have very, very little understanding. So some of those mantras we had, which we just followed.
One more question or? Thank you. I think we have good. Anyone has a question?
Thank you, ma'am.
All right. So, thank you, Vineet. I think this was a very, very candid and a very deep and reflective presentation. I learnt a lot from the conversations, and I'm sure one will mull over them and use examples of this in one's classes. Before we really thank formally everyone, we have a little... this is...
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for coming over.
Thank you very much.
And for the effort.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
On behalf of Ashank Desai Center for Leadership and Organizational Development, I extend my heartfelt thank you, sir, for your invaluable insights from 40 years of your time with the industry. I would also like to thank Ashank, sir, and our EC members for your support and guidance throughout. And I would also like to thank our travel center, CC, and Prithvi Hospitality Services for all the arrangements and seamlessly getting it done. And last but not the least, our audience who have joined us here as well as online, and for making this a successful event. Thank you. Thanks a lot. The refreshments are arranged outside. Yeah, thank you.